Hello, and welcome to the No Bad Questions podcast, where I try to learn in a conversational manner, to break down jargon, and to present the least amount of filtering as possible on a wide array of topics. I hope that you learn something too. If you do and want to support the podcast, you probably already know all the ways that you can do so. You can like, share, subscribe, hit the notifications, but ultimately, and what I hope you choose to do, is watch to the very end. With that, we'll start today's podcast. Hello and welcome to this week's No Bad Questions podcast. My guest today is Cindy Ault. Cindy Ault has been in the side hustle game since before people were calling it a side hustle. She's been owning rental properties and VRBOs for a combined 31 years while working a full-time job in an auto manufacturing supplier or other manufacturing suppliers in Ohio. She's a lifelong Ohio resident, mother of two grown adult children, and the successful marriage holder, I guess we'll call it, for 32 years. So Cindy, lots of good successes there, but the main one, obviously, we're here to talk about is your side hustle, because I think there's a lot of people in this day and age wanting to learn more about that, to get into that. So thank you for making time to be here with me on No Bad Questions.
Well, thank you, David. Thank you for having me.
So, what is VRBO?
VRBO is vacation rentals by owner. So that is a rental area that you can rent from at the same as an Airbnb. And then there's other companies that are out there that do their own thing. Most of the vacation rentals by owners, VRBO or VRBO, are at what I found to be at lakes and I want to say just different areas other than Airbnbs. I find Airbnbs more in downtowns, in big cities, the apartment buildings, and all kinds of different things. When I think of a vacation by rental, I think of an ocean, a lake, a vacation rental home, but they really are both. I only deal with VRBO because if I go into Airbnb, it becomes one and the other, and then I don't want that to override one. So it's easier to just be in control of VRBO.
Okay. All right. Well, I didn't realize that about the geographic separation. So that's actually pretty interesting. So let's thank you for that. Let's back up and just, how'd you get started? I'm sure VRBO, if you've been doing this for 31 years, wasn't around back then. How'd you get started in the real estate side hustle game?
Well, thank you. So what happened was I got married 32 years ago, and my husband and I were looking for a home after we got married, and his father had been in rental properties in Greenville, owning some apartment complexes. So we went ahead and bought a double and lived in half and rented out half. So at that point, when we bought that rental, it was a home mortgage interest rate rather than an investment interest rate, because we were actually living in half of it. So that's how we started. And we've owned that successfully for 30 some years. We lived in it for 6 months or so. No, I'm sorry. We lived in it for about a year and a half. And then we bought our own home in Tip City. And then we've lived here ever since. And we've we've had great success in our rentals. One of our renters was there almost 17 years.
Oh, wow. I would imagine that's not normal. I would think that the average, tenure time, whatever that somebody's going to stay in a rental is much lower. Is that more typical that it's lower?
It is. Our rental is a little different. Our rental is a brick ranch double with a 2-car garage in the middle. So there's 4-car garage, and then it's separated with a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. So, and it's in a neighborhood with a bunch of other homes. So it's not like an apartment complex or anything like that. People, I think, tend to stay longer because it's more of a home to them rather than a rental. And the people that we've been successful with are older generation that are done owning a home. They just want to pay a rent every month and not worry about any of the repairs or anything if there are any. So that's why we've been really successful in that. Honestly, it's so nice. I just get a check every month from both sides. Sometimes I don't even hear from them. It's really worked out well.
That's okay. So there's a couple interesting things actually in what you've already mentioned, but I was planning to ask you, and it sounds like you might not have any. Do you have any horror stories? I know some folks have that either from your rentals or from the VRBO, because I mean, I've read articles about squatters,
Absolutely.
people who won't leave, things like this. So do you have anything like that, or has it all been successes?
They have all been successes on our double that we own. Now, in the middle of 5 or 6 years after we bought that, my husband and I thought maybe we would go ahead and maybe buy a couple other rentals. So we bought a rental down in an area, and it was a metropolitan, which means that the government was paying, it was a double and it was half and half. Anyways, it went fine for a while, and we ended up getting a call by the neighbors and went into this home that was 2-bedroom, and they had 14 people living in there.
Oh my gosh.
They had taken the living room area and separated it with curtains so they could have their individual. Anyways, we kicked them out, evicted them, and told them that they could have their deposit back if they would get out at the certain amount of time, and they got out immediately, because honestly, I think they just wanted their money.
Right.
So that's the only real horror story we had. Other than that, I've never had to evict anybody, and we don't have that property anymore anyways. That was just a trial and error. We tried it. It wasn't something that we really wanted to continue with, but we did have that issue. But in our rental that we still own now, the double, they either move out. I've never had to kick anybody out. They've all moved out when they wanted to. They've been clean. They've not had anything's destroyed. It's been really good.
And what about the VRBOs? Have you had anybody there that's been a negative experience for you as the owner?
No, and that's another thing. I might be knocking on wood here. We've been lucky. We've owned a VRBO rental property at Norris Lake for 3 years. We run it through the VRBO account, and all my renters have been in and out. I think also another thing, it's a condo. So it's not like a home where you can have 15 people and big, huge parties and all that kind of stuff. It's in a condo, a building. So I think that keeps down from the people that might want to go in and have a big party and trash the place. I take a deposit. They get their deposits back. I haven't had any issues with those either, honestly. I'm lucky, I guess, right now.
Well, yeah, it sounds like definitely some good luck there. Although, I mean, 14 people living in your rental, I mean, that's not great, and I don't know if I'd call that a horror story, but it's definitely, it proves that it's not always going to be smooth sailing. And I don't know what the percentages are. I don't know the real estate rental market well enough to know, maybe that's in line with the average of how many people have that are problems or whatever.
Well, the one thing I do know is our rental properties are rather expensive, or they're a higher dollar. So you're getting people in there that are paying that amount, and they're going to take care of it. So our rentals at the lake are a 4-bedroom condo, and it's at a higher rate. It's in a resort. We've got really good people that go in and pay that money. So we think that they respect it and would take care of it, and they do. So that's the only thing. If you had lower rated apartments, or rents were a lot lower, you would have maybe not as many people to respect it. I don't know. We just have been really lucky.
Okay. All right. Well, and I think that can make some sense. I mean, if I go to a cheap hotel versus the Ritz-Carlton, right, there's going to be differences there in maintenance and so forth. Okay, so you mentioned that your first double was at a personal mortgage rate, and I think that's one thing that people maybe don't think about often. Particularly, I don't think it's talked about often when somebody watches a how-to YouTube on getting rich via real estate or whatever. People don't necessarily talk about in the differences in mortgages. So your implication is your further investments have needed to be under a different type of mortgage. Am I picking that up correctly?
That's correct. The government does not allow, or the banks or anybody does not allow you to get an interest rated mortgage for an investment property. So when you buy investment properties, say vacation homes or anything like that, in addition to your own personal home, there are different interest rates for those. So when we bought our very first home as a rental property and lived in it, I think the stipulation was only 6 months. Lived in half of it for 6 months, then moved out, you still get to keep that mortgage, that mortgage rate, and you don't have to switch it over to a rental. So that's what really benefited us at the very beginning, because there is a big difference from your mortgage rates if you're doing it as an investment property or just a home mortgage. The rates are a lot higher.
Okay. And in your experience, are the durations, you can get a 30-year mortgage. Are the durations different? Are the down payment requirements different?
No, well, I don't really. Some of the requirements might be, it's been a while since I've gotten a loan like that.
Enough.
But the difference is, because it's a rental property and your renters are paying your mortgage. So our double that we own right now, they are paying our mortgage every month, plus some. Mm-hmm. So eventually, after you pay on your mortgage for 5 or 6, 7, 8, 9 years, you're paying into your principal and not your interest anymore. Mm-hmm. So you want to refinance it and put it back into, because when you claim it on your taxes, when you claim your rental properties on your taxes, you are bringing in all that income and you have to write money off against that income, or you have to pay tax on it. Mm-hmm. So your mortgage interest on your loans is a big, huge amount that you get to write off. But as you start paying against the interest and into the principal, you might want to refinance it, because your renters are paying your mortgage anyways, and then you just take out the equity. So Brian and I have enjoyed that throughout the years, as refinancing it and taking out the equity and doing other things with that money, because your renters are still paying your mortgage.
That's really interesting. I don't know that I've ever heard any real estate investment videos online talk about that. Maybe I haven't looked hard enough, but that's an interesting strategy. So you're really focused on the cash flow and then getting that equity out, rather than building up to where, oh, cool, my renters have been paying on it for 10 years. Now it's paid off. Cool, I own this paid off property.
Exactly. And then you have to claim that $18,000 you brought in that year for rental income, and you got to pay a ton of tax on it because you have nothing to write off against it. So honestly, with rental property, once you start paying into your principal and you've paid off almost all your interest, and your mortgage interest is so low that you have hardly anything to claim at the end of taxes, you need to refinance it. Or if the interest rates are really low too, refinance it, pull your money out and do something else with it. That's what we've done. And we've owned it really 31 years. We still owe a mortgage on it because our renters are still paying it every month.
Right.
And if we wanted to, we could cash out and sell the whole thing. But we've just decided it's been a really good investment for us. So
that's really interesting. Okay. So that's a cool nugget there that I think a lot of other folks aren't talking about. But speaking about what some other folks are talking about, are you, I feel like, I watch videos, everybody these days talking side hustle. And one of the most common ones they talk about is real estate rentals, which is part of what I asked you to come on today. And so, but a lot of these folks who are talking about that out there on social media, on YouTube, wherever, it has this air of like get rich quick scheme. So are you filthy rich after 31 years of doing this?
That's the thing. You're not really. It's a money flow more thing. I think you're filthy rich when you sell the property and when you're done with it. Just like our rental property at Norris Lake, we are not filthy rich, but our renters are buying our property for us, and they are paying it for us. So that is where the filthy rich comes in, when you have the actual property. Filthy rich money like in your pocket, no, because you don't really you have expenses against it and you have to pay against it. But in the long run, all those rents that everybody is paying you is paying your mortgage, and it's buying your property for you. So your principal on your property is going down, 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 and your renters are buying it for you. So that's really where I feel that the filthy rich comes in. It's not a cash flow thing. We don't have, because it really isn't. It's just one of those things. And now if we want to refinance, like I said, every 8 to 10 years, depending on, then that might be, but that's not a filthy rich. That's just a nice little chunk you can do something else with.
Right. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
And so kind of get into the weeds a little bit here, but I've also heard some folks recommend that you run these types of rentals like through an LLC. Do you all use an LLC or an S Corp or whatever to run these through?
We absolutely run this through an LLC because you don't want to, especially on rental property, and you've got people in and out and whatever, you don't want your own personal property to be sued or again, for anything. So you run it into an LLC, and your LLC would be the one that would have the issue if there was anything, when you're working with the public and you just have public in and out, you just don't know. And in this day and age, you just have to watch. So run it through an LLC and do not do it your own personal, because then they can take everything of your personal down to nothing. At least your LLC, you're covered. So yes, absolutely.
So top tips for everybody, if you're thinking about getting into real estate side hustle, make sure you get your LLC lined up.
Absolutely. It's very easy to do.
Okay. I like to give little tips for people to actually be able to take away. And so the next one might be, how did you pick what VRBOs to buy? Was it just, okay, we like traveling to Norris Lake, so we're going to buy one that we like, and if you build it, they will come type of thing?
Almost. So Brian, my husband's family, had grown up boating. I had never grown up boating. Our youngest was a year, two and a half, and we bought our first boat. Brian wanted to have a boat. He grew up with a boat. So we started going to Norris Lake 25 years ago. Okay. And went every summer, stayed all over the lake, all different places, rented here, rented there, and always talked, we should buy here. We should buy here. And finally in our life, and after the schooling with our children and everything, we felt comfortable that we would be able to, afford and go in and buy. So we wanted to buy at Norris because we go there all the time. We stay there. We spend all kinds of money there at everybody else's rentals. So why not have one of our own? Well, we kind of got lucky because we knew a couple that owned this condo that we bought at Norris from Troy, and they were selling it. So we kind of had a little slide in, and we did it in January of 2020. So COVID hit in March of 2020. And we struggled and finally got it bought by May 1st. Or no, Memorial Day weekend, because we wanted it for the summer to rent during the summer. If we couldn't get it until the middle of the summer, the end of the summer, then we would have to pay rent all winter long without any income, because it doesn't rent in the winter. It's available for rent, but people don't rent there. They don't rent there. So we bought that. And it was so successful. And then I just decided to run it through VRBO, because VRBO takes all the money. They guarantee my pay. If the renter has an issue with money, they deal with it. It's, I'm guaranteed my money. There is a fee that I had to pay, but to me, it's worth it because they handle all of the money. Right. So that was my very first one. And we took out the holidays and went ourselves on Memorial Day, 4th of July, and Labor Day. So that was like our gift, and we didn't pay anything. So that was like our gift to use the property. And then we rented it all the other days. Well, while we were there, we met the people underneath us, and they sold the next year, and we bought from them direct. So we didn't even have a realtor. So now we own them on one on top of each other. So it's worked out really well. What I have done now is, I don't like the fact that VRBO, most renters will start booking in November, December, January for the next summer. VRBO gets all that money right up front. They sit on that money all those months, and they hold it, and that's where they make their money. They make all their money holding everybody's money. Interesting. Then I don't get paid until the day after they move in. So, and then VRBO gets their final payment 2 months before, and they have all that money, and then we don't get paid until the day after they check in, which is no big deal. But now that it's been 2 years, I've created return customers or renters, and now I'm going direct. So I'm saving and I'm getting the money up front because I'm looking on the cash flow. I'm getting the deposit up front. I'm getting half the right up front in November, December, and January, whereas VRBO is not. But I'm still running my everything through VRBO because I still have people out there renting through VRBO. It's okay to do both ways because if I didn't, I would have to create my own account or my own website and all that for our own rental, and I use VRBO.
Okay, so again, there's several things in there, little threads of questions. So, but first of all, one of them, again, little tactics for folks is if you get into this situation where you're doing VRBO, you're doing VRBO, you own a property, and you're using it for yourself from time to time, one of the hidden lessons you just mentioned is get to know people around you, because maybe they'll sell, maybe they'll find you a deal, maybe whatever. So you don't want to go on vacation and just be in your little bubble on vacation. You want to get to know some folks, is I think a hidden tip that you have in there.
That's exactly right. Exactly right.
Okay. And so one of the things so VRBO is running essentially like a rental management service for you.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Exactly. But it's all on computer. It's all computerized.
Okay. But you're also then, once you've sort of directly connected with these customers, doing it on your own.
Yes.
As well.
And then
do you get scheduling conflicts?
No, because I can go into the VRBO and block any days I want. So I go into the VRBO calendar and I block off any of the ones that are direct, that I've done direct. So, but I still do a lot with VRBO because when somebody's looking for a rental, they will go to VRBO and then ours will pop up if they're looking for a 4-bedroom. I just like doing the direct because it gives me money flow. If I am not doing it direct, I don't have my money flow until, and honestly, what I've discovered over the last 3 years is nobody really rents from October to May. I mean, it's available, it's out there, people could go, but nobody goes boating. They could go for a nice football weekend away at the, at the condo and hang out. And it's okay because we make our money from June, July, and August, but it's out there available. So we go every month, once a month on the weekends for our own selves and enjoy it in the wintertime.
Okay. So one of the things within that was you said you got started on this in January of 2020. And of course, we all know what happened in March of 2020. So you're buying this vacation property at a time when vacations, at least for a while, are essentially being not allowed. Did you have any reservations? Like, what was that like? Here comes COVID and you're trying to buy this property to rent out, not just for yourself, but to rent out for vacationers, and the world is like locking down. What was that like?
It is. Well, and that's very interesting that you say that, because we went all the way through April and May. And finally, the biggest thing for us is we were okay with the rental. We were thinking about the COVID, but we couldn't get it through the banks. The banks were shut down. All of this, our biggest heartache was getting the mortgage done and finished by Memorial Day so we could rent it. Now, interesting you ask about that. I wish I had 10 rental properties summer of 2020, because going boating is an individual family event. You have your own boat, you have your 5 family, you're not around 100 of crowds, you're not around a bunch of people. I couldn't have enough properties to sell that summer because nobody was traveling, nobody was flying anywhere, nobody was, they were driving. It was the perfect setup for a COVID vacation where you could still be by yourselves. It's interesting, isn't it?
I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, that's interesting. So as things started to loosen up a little bit that summer, everybody wants to get out of the house, but they want to still maybe stay away from other. Okay, yeah.
And they're all within their own families. They have their own condo. You're on your own boat. You go boating by yourself. You're not around a bunch of people. The marinas, I believe, Well, they kind of laughed in Tennessee. They said COVID didn't exist in Tennessee. So I don't think the marinas were even using masks at that time. I'm not sure. But anyways, yeah, it was a really good summer for us. And then last summer was really good. This summer is it's good, but I can see it's a little slower. And I just think that's because traveling's opened up for other places. So people aren't just having to go to the lake. They are traveling and flying places. So, but it's still it's still good for us.
And okay, so do you feel like folks who are doing this as a side thing, a side hustle, side gig, side income, if they wanted to get into not just the normal rentals, but the VRBO style of vacation or Airbnb or whatever, should somebody doing this as a side thing buy those types of properties at a place they're not vacationing to, in your opinion?
They could. What you would need to do, I'm looking for others. I'm looking for Florida now because Florida is 365 days a year, except maybe June and July. You know what I mean? So so you don't have to vacation there. This is the thing. And we didn't talk about this, but this is a very, very important thing. You have to absolutely have the best cleaning crew or group of people around that will take care of your property. Because I live 5.5 hours away from Norris Lake. I can't just jump in the car if something goes wrong. You have to have a dependable group of people that would be there cleaning when they need to, because you as a renter would want to get there, checkouts at 11, check-ins at 3. You want to be there and be ready to go. So I think that if you are looking for a rental property and a VRBO, you need to make sure that the area is a touristy place where you're going to have it rented. So like I said, Florida would be the very next place I would like to go because I literally would have it rented the months that I'm not renting my condos in Norris. It's interesting. And you would want to make sure you have a good company or somebody that you would have to take care of it. You can still manage it and everything through VRBO, but you need to have somebody on hand that you can call and say, hey, this happened, or have a list of plumbers and heaters. We've had furnace problems and we've had some plumbing problems, but you just call somebody and they take care of it right away. So
How'd you find all those? How'd you find all the service people, the cleaners? How did you find that?
So I did a lot of investigation when we first were looking at buying this property. The property is in a Deerfield Resort at Norris Lake. So it is in an area that there are a lot of other condos. So they have their own little directory per se, and they have a bunch of service companies that will come and do all the work at those condos. So I am lucky to have that information. We at one point thought about buying a home rather than the rental or rather than the condo. And I think the home would be more stressful for me because you would have a yard, you would have so many other things that you would have to worry about trying to maintain and take care of. The condo is the perfect thing. You don't have a yard. You pay an HOA. You don't have a yard. We have a pool, a swimming pool right beside our condo. So you have all of that within the HOA. So that's another tip I would give. If you're looking for a VRBO, maybe look into a condo association or something rather than a home. A home just takes a lot more work. You can have it done. A lot of people own homes, especially in Florida. They have all kinds of pool boys and lawn care services and everything. You just have to know to use all of that. And you have to keep all of that in mind on your expense because you're going to have to pay that out. So you have to look at your buy and your income and your expenses to know where you're going to have a profit or at least be above the line.
Well, I like that tip. That's another tip today is potentially a condo or in maybe some areas where it's touristy, but people buildings whatever sell apartments. To me, an apartment is a rental, but I know a lot of urban areas do that. And so if maybe it's Miami, right? So maybe you'd buy an apartment or whatever. But okay, so that's a great tip as well. And then the alternating seasons and your pathway to that sounds like as well. If you're going to get into more than one vacation rental, trying to make sure you're spreading your seasonality out. Do you use a management? Just kind of backing up a bit. Do you use a management company then for the cleaning and maintenance of your double and your normal rental?
No. So with that is just a just a rental that people pay per month and they live there. They take care of the yard. They do all
Gotcha.
that. So I don't have anything like that. Now, when people move out, we do go in and clean, and I have some connections of names around here that do that. But as far as on a daily basis or monthly basis, those are just, like I said, I just get a check every month and it's good to go, because those are just a rent, like renting an apartment.
Okay.
Yeah. And they take care of their own yard. So I rent it that way, saying that you will take care of it.
It's on them. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So I want to pivot a little bit and just talk about, okay, so we've been saying this is not your, primary job. You are not trying to be a real estate mogul, and have a 700 units or whatever. You're doing this on the side to your main gig. Now, you did mention you're looking to do maybe another or grow, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I think folks might be interested to hear, how do you manage then the balance of this versus your day job, right? Because you're in I don't know your exact hours, but generally speaking, you're in a 9 to 5, in customer service for a manufacturer. So it's not a remote. You don't get to, a lot of folks who are working remote maybe can flex their schedules. You're showing up physically every day and doing that job while you're trying to do this. So how do you manage that?
So a lot of it has to do with the phone. It's all on the phone. So VRBO is just an app, and you can go right on there. Now, I have my own computer I'm working on right here. I go on every night if I need to. So right now, since all my rentals are rented, I just have to watch. We have a ring. So I have to watch my ring and make sure my renters move in and my cleaners come when they need to and all of that. So that's just a visual. That's nothing. But when
Your top
I'm
tip right there, folks,
place,
get a ring.
Yes.
They should get a ring camera or the
yes,
equivalent. That's another top tip.
You absolutely have to have a ring. And this is the thing. I am not watching my renters the whole trip here and there. The ring is there for me to make sure that my renters get in okay, and my cleaners get there, and then they get out, and I can tell my cleaners to go, because it's my only visual to know what's happening.
Right.
So the ring is the best. So that's just a visual during the day. But during rental season, when I'm actually renting, I come home in the evenings, I create all my invoices, I run it all through that. I keep a spreadsheet. I do all of the finances of our LLC, because it's called Eastern Sunrise, and I have to reclaim taxes on it and all of that.
Sure. So
I keep track of all of that in an Excel spreadsheet. But it's exactly what's done great for the last 2 years, and it works well for us right now. So on a daily basis, David, it's just watching the phone or checking the app. I get VRBO gives me instant messages that say, hey, congratulations, you have a rental, or something like that, or the messages will come through on instant message. So yeah.
Okay. All right. And the technology tools there, obviously really powerful. Probably can't emphasize that enough.
Right.
Well, it's a condo, so it's inside of a larger building. I was going to say, do you also have it rigged up with alarm systems and all that stuff for if there's any vandalism, like in those those off months?
Right into our condo. They're all outside doors. So you walk right into our condo from the outside. So the only entrance in is where the ring is. So we don't have access to see down. We have boat slips at the bottom where they put their boats. We don't have a ring down there yet. We would like to put a camera so that we can at least see our boat slip. We don't see any of that. It's just for our own security to see it. But we might do that. We've talked about maybe doing that, but really it's just right at the doorbell. It's a Ring doorbell. You just stick it on the Ring doorbell and there you go. Perfect. $30 a year.
Okay. And then the app and everything. So you can do all that online. And so that probably is allowing you to do this in a way or at a level of efficiency you probably couldn't have done in 1998.
Oh, I can't even imagine. Can't even imagine how anybody could. Well, world was different back then too, and you would just trusted people and everything was better, but you had no idea. You didn't know when people were in and out, and at that time, this is really interesting. Norris Lake has really bad cell service, so we have Wi-Fi. We have great Wi-Fi. People go there and they do work and everything. But some people don't have Wi-Fi or don't have cell service. So back then, I don't even know how they did it. You just hope this is where they were going and they were good for the week. I mean, yeah, you're right.
Do you have, so do you have to get that nitty gritty with your listings? Like, hey, no cell service. I mean, do you have to tell people that, or do you get complaints, or?
No, most people know that when they go to Norris, in certain areas, they don't have cell service. Now, you can get cell service at the top of the hill at the resort. It's not like you can't get it at all. You can go up, and then we have Wi-Fi and they hook right into the Wi-Fi and then they're good to go. You can't talk. You can always still text and FaceTime and all that. You just can't always call. One of the carriers has better service than another carrier. So, but it's something that's usually known. I really have never had anybody complain. Let's put it that way.
Okay. And at any of these that you're doing, and I know these days, I feel like there's this growing expectation, no judgment, but just I feel like there's a growing expectation in society that you can that everywhere should be pet friendly. And so have you made your rentals pet friendly?
It's very interesting that you bring that up. We are not pet friendly. We have had some people ask us for pet friendly. We've even had somebody ask us that had an emotional dog. We are not pet friendly, but there are very many homes on North Lake that are, and we tell them that. We just can't do that. It's a condo. It's just not something that you can have. Your little hypoallergenic, doesn't shed, probably better than my kids, blah, blah, blah. I get it all, but we've just made it a rule and we haven't had any issues. We did have one issue. It's interesting you asked, because we have the ring. We saw this family bring their dog in and hide it as they're coming by the ring. So blatant, I said something to them. They said they didn't realize it. All over my place, it says no pets. And they ended up living close enough that they could take it home. Or they an hour away or 2 hours away, I don't know. But they took it home. But they tried to sneak it in, even though they said they didn't realize it. You could literally show and see that they were trying to sneak it by. But that's a very good question. And in this day and age, people have pets everywhere. But at a lake, it's just, we don't offer it. And we haven't had any issues because there are other places that do. Many, many places offer pet friendly. I see it. So that's my option. I guess I can, say, here, you can go somewhere else. I'm sorry.
Right.
Yeah. I'm probably going to have a lot of dog haters out there. Sorry, guys.
Well, I mean, I like dogs. I don't currently have one, but I ask because it does seem like more and more places are going to dog-friendly hotels or pet-friendly hotels and yes. everywhere. And so it's just curious to learn how society is adapting.
I agree. Our double, we allow pets.
Okay.
They can have pets where they live. I mean, it's their home. The one side has a dog and one side has 2 cats. I mean, that's their home. The worst thing that would happen for us is we have to replace the carpet and it'd be fine. You know what I mean? So, and it's on a slab. So we don't mind that because that's a living, but on a vacation, yeah.
Right. No, that makes sense. Having a different approach to the different styles of property there. So going back to you balancing this then between, work and normal life and this business, does your husband, it sounds like you're doing a lot of this on the rentals. Does your husband get involved? I mean, are you balancing that between the two of you, or is this really kind of your thing, that you're managing these?
So I take care of all of the rental and all of the paperwork and all of the social whatever. And then Brian's really great at doing some repairs. And when we get there, we're always doing something. So he totally is involved. He's just not involved on the paperwork side or the social daily side. And honestly, we can only have one, because if you have 2 people or 3 people involved and somebody's taking a reservation here or somebody's, it's just easier to just have it all under one person. Now, our LLC is my brother and my sister-in-law and a friend. So it's not just me, or not just Brian and I. However, I take care of everything because, like I said, it's just easier that way. And it works out much better. But I love to do that kind of thing too. I'm a busybody. I like to do stuff like that. I like doing that. I would like to have more rentals to do that. I would like to do property management sometime just as a job, but I've had it really easy. So I know there's things out there where people have it tough and there's not all that great renters. So,
Sure.
I've just had it easy.
So you mentioned others are on the LLC, and I feel like most folks who do this do it as like a, what do you call it, a single member LLC or whatever. Are they also invested with you, or is that just?
We're all 4 invested.
Okay.
So when we bought the very first rental, it's a 4-bedroom, so it kind of worked out nice. We all said, okay, it's not your particular bedroom, but we all have a bedroom to sleep in. Let's say that as the couples. And then when we bought the other one, it worked perfectly because then we could bring all of our kids and all of our family. So when we come for the holidays, we have it filled with all of our partners. There's 7 of us, and then all of the kids.
Okay. All right. And are there any, pitfalls, landmines to watch out for, in your opinion, about investing with friends or family?
So investing with friends and family, it works well as long as communication is open and everybody is speaking and talking, and you have you have things in writing, you talk about, so we are with family and friends within our LLC, and it has worked out well. We haven't had any issues because we all have the same goals, I feel. There could be somebody that might want something. You also do a 3-to-1 vote. You have to. You can't just do all or none.
Right.
In any kind of cases, we've never had an issue, but you could. It's all worked out well. We're on our 3rd summer now, so we haven't had any issues.
Great.
And we truly enjoy it when we go in the winter times too, or throughout the winter months.
That's great. Okay. So, and I think that there's some specific tips in there that you kind of breeze past them, but it's everything in writing, open communication, voting. It can't be a dictatorship, but it also must be unanimous. So if folks are looking to raise capital with friends, family, whoever, get into an LLC and buy a property, take some of these and use those as tactics for yourself in what you all maybe, or at least look into it, because I think it's good advice
absolutely.
there, Cindy.
Absolutely.
One other thing then that I'm kind of curious about, or wanting to both educate me and any listener about, is, are there hidden costs that people don't think about? I mean, like we're talking about a couple things that I would imagine you might not think about going in, like an attorney, maybe a better or different tax person, right? Somebody who does personal taxes maybe is not as familiar with doing the taxes for the LLC. Have you had any sort of hidden expenses along the way that going in you didn't think you'd ever need, or whatever, that maybe people should be aware of?
Well, we haven't had really any hidden expenses on the side of getting the LLC or the rental property, but within our rental property, we've had some extra expenses that we weren't aware of once we bought into, like an HOA and an extra some different things that we needed to investigate further, just so that we weren't surprised. We would have still done it. It was just some of those things. We're very lucky that one of our partners, brother is a CPA, so he does all of our rental property, all of our taxes. So that worked out really well. And then we have a really good attorney that we have that wrote up our LLC and put in the guidelines and all of that. So we were lucky on that. That's not too many expenses, but when you buy into a property, and if you're in an apartment complex or anything, please be sure all of your expenses incurred throughout the HOA, just many different ones that we found out about. It's all good, but we just weren't aware of them right away.
Well, and it could
we were
be
so
that
excited,
it wouldn't be all good, right? If there was something that was very large expense and you didn't know about it, then
Well, absolutely. That would be a bad thing. So, for instance, we did have a little bit of an expense that we had to pay that we weren't aware of. There was a wall that needed repaired because it's on a hill and it caved in, and it was like 300,000, a lot of money. But per individual condo association, it was a good $3,000 or $4,000. Well, we own 2 condos. So luckily it went into effect when the people below still owned the condo below. So we only owed a couple months of the below condo
Right.
and the upper one. But that's just something that you can't really prepare for because it's nature. It happens, but you're in the HOA and you all have to pay for a repair.
Right.
So that's just something that happens that we were not aware of, that all of a sudden when we bought the place, we're like, oh my goodness, but it all worked out fine.
Right.
So,
No,
and now
absolutely.
it's repaired.
Well, Cindy, I think that today we've had several moments where I've definitely learned something. So hopefully any listener who's stuck around will have learned something. In particular, I think there's a lot of good tips. I think embedded in your story of these 31 years of rental, VRBOs, et cetera, as a side business, not as your primary business or primary vocation, is relationships. Ironically, right? Because I think anyway that rentals in a lot of way are transactional, particularly VRBO. But you're talking about, okay, we knew the people below us, and that gave us an opportunity to buy another investment. Okay, we got to know our customers, and then that way I can rent to them directly. Okay, we had good folks, good rentals, good renters in our the home that we rented, and so that added stability. Okay, I built relationships with the maintenance, the contractors, the cleaners. Okay, I have a relationship with a CPA, with a lawyer. So to me, one of the biggest things that I'm getting as a takeaway is that this is much more of a relationship business than I would have ever guessed. Would you say I'm off track there?
No, I think you're absolutely correct. And me being in a customer service position my whole entire career gives me the opportunity to really be hands-on with my renters and the people that we rent, even our renters at our home. And the reason I say that is because I am always in touch with my renters before or after when they're leaving. My reviews all say such great communication with Cindy. I want to hear that because we rented for so many, many years that I know what I wanted. So I'm trying to create my rentals like that. Like I don't want to have to check out before 11 in the morning. So I don't have my renters check out till 11. I want to be in before 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So we do check in at 3. I do things like that I myself would have wanted throughout all the years I rented. And I want that for my renters. So it's truly customer service and talking with your people. Communication is 100% everything. And I truly believe that too.
Well, Cindy, thank you very much for all that, for your wisdom here and your input and some of your takeaways that people who might be interested in getting into this as a side hustle can take away and learn about and use in their daily life. So thank you very much for joining me here on No Bad Questions.
Well, thank you, David. Have a great day.
You too.